We have to welcome Shri V. Vaidyanathan, Executive Chairman of Capital First Limited. Huge round of applause.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My pleasure to speak to all of you on this very special occasion of this event organized by ASSOCHAM, 4th National Summit Bankers Borrowers Business Meet 2018. Now, let me start with some quick data points which will probably help all of you get the context broadly right. Of the total commercial borrowing of 54 lakh crores as of today, which was about 53 lakh crores in September 2017, the large corporates exposure is 25 lakh crores. The mid corporate exposures, which is loan amounts between 25 crores to 100 crores, is 10 lakh crores. Loan amounts between 1 crore to 25 crore, which is normally defined as a small and medium enterprises, is 12.5 lakh crore. And the small, which is micro enterprises, which is less than 1 crore ticket size, is 5.5 lakh crores. So it is pretty clear that large ticket transactions have close to about 53% of corporate credit. Now let me share with you the NPA numbers. We all know the NPA of the large corporates. I don't want to go there, and we all know the reasons. So it is a larger conversation. But let me focus on the NPA of the MSME sector. If you see the MSME sector NPA for PSU, I am going to categorize PSU NPA separately from private sector bank than NBFC. The NPA for PSU banks for MSMEs is 20%. But NPA for PSU banks for micro MSMEs is 11.1%. Micro MSMEs less than 1 crore. When we look for NBFCs, for MSME, the NPA is 5.8%. But micro MSME is 5.5%. When you take private sector banks, NPA for MSMEs is 3.8%. But NPA for micro MSMEs is 1.8%. So what's the point? The reason I categorized these three categories separately is because the lending practices are different and so on. I'm not, that's not my subject of discussion right now. The point I'm making is that whether it is NBFCs or public sector banks or private sector banks, the NPA of the micro entrepreneurs is the least as compared to any other segment. It is lesser than the SMEs, and SMEs NPA is lesser than large corporates. This doesn't mean we don't have the large corporates. Large corporates is a very important part of the Indian system. And end of the day, all large corporates are not necessarily trouble either. We very well know that project financing, infrastructure financing, where the cash flow is dependent on a future event or activity or completion of a project, has much more NPA than commercial bank, than corporate banking. But having said that, the theme of the subject is still about the small entrepreneur. Then you might say that if the NPA of the small entrepreneur is the least, and you find that the allocation to that sector or credit disbursal to the sector is the least, that is sounding rather incongruous. Again, there could be many reasons for this, and there may be historical reasons. There may have been ease of just getting a large borrower and building a balance sheet. Maybe there are many reasons. But let me just focus upon what is changing recently. What is changing recently is that if you notice the conversation or talk from most players in the industry as we speak, almost every lender is now talking about retailization of their loan book. Almost every lender is now talking about how the Indian new emerging middle class is going to be a large opportunity and how we can lend to them. This is uniformly so, whether you talk to public sector banks, private sector banks, NBFCs, foreign banks, they all have a similar theme as we speak today. So this large gap that I showed to you about lending to the small sector being so low despite being good quality is definitely set to change now. Now, what are the factors that are enabling such a change? One is from the regulator themselves. I think the Reserve Bank of India has been definitely pushing the ecosystem towards lending to the small entrepreneur and making the ecosystem easier. The Government of India has made its choice very clear. They have almost issued a circular to the large banks saying that, look, we want you to focus more on the small entrepreneur. The amount of focus that is coming on the Mudra scheme is very significant. In fact, close to about, if I'm not mistaken, close to about 4.6 lakh crores of Mudra loans have already been disbursed to 10.38 crore beneficiaries, of which 76% are women. It is clearly showing as a focus from the government also. If you see the evolving ecosystem in terms of availability of knowledge about credit, that has dramatically changed. Not very long ago, maybe even 8 or 10 years ago, lending against income tax returns was the done thing. The first question you would ask for anybody applying for a loan would be, what is your income tax return, how much is your income? That language is dramatically changing. And therefore, at the same time, we have access to Aadhaar, we have access to the customer's bureau records, we have access to a number of such sources of information. GST is the latest source, because GST is a very, very powerful source of information for being able to evaluate credit. Now, many banks are able to evaluate customers' bank balances and just say that income tax return is not the important thing. Let me see your bank balance. If you have the money in the bank, I'm going to lend you the money. There are many small entrepreneurs who are actually sitting with the customer, understanding the cash flow of the customer, not the balance sheet, not the P&L, just cash flow. They could actually sit with a small shopkeeper, a kirana shop or a chemist, and understand his cash flow and then lend. Now, many such models are now beginning to emerge. I was seeing a TED talk the other day about someone who was saying that, look, we lend on the basis of just the telephone records. I mean, it is a story in Africa where they were actually mentioning that there was a lady whom they were tracing, and they were actually pointing out if someone has more than 50 contacts on their mobile phone, it's a good credit. If a customer is transiting a particular route every day from morning to evening and back at the home, then they say it's a lot more predictable if the customer is working out of here. So that becomes a source of information. Then there was another source of information they picked was if they spoke to 4 particular contacts every single day, then they got a lot more information on credit. Now, all of these have nothing to do with balance sheet, nothing to do with the income tax records. It's just the basis of how the customer behaved on the mobile phone. There was another NBFC or fintech was talking about lending on the basis of figuring out how the customer's social media performances, for example, who are the friends on Facebook, are those friends behaving well, and so on. So basically, the emergence of such alternative data and the focus of the government and the focus of Reserve Bank of India and all such factors put together, a lot more credit is moving down the chain. Finally, as in any situation, market forces are the best benchmark of making credit available to such so-called underserved segments. If you see, quite a while ago, there was always this issue with interest rates on home loans. The complaint of borrowers always used to be that, look, when interest rate goes up, the banks immediately increased it. When they come down, they don't reduce it for a long period of time. There's a big lag, and so on and so forth. Now, how many ever directives came from the Reserve Bank of India? That situation is not improving. Then suddenly one day RBI woke up and said, no more prepayment charges for home loans. The moment they did that, then the existing customer was no longer a hostage of the existing bank. The person could just move away to the next bank, and therefore banks were forced to give better rates to existing customers. So market forces based solution. For example, priority sector PSLC certificates. That again is a market forces based solution. No amount of cajoling or pushing or regulation was achieving as much as the uniformity of availability of credit that PSLC certificates have brought, mainly because there is far more clear allocation of responsibilities and specialization. Someone has the ability to reach the grassroots, someone has the funding capabilities, and they're coming together through PSLC. So everywhere market solution is the solution, which is a significant way. And when you think of market solution, the latest solution as far as availability of credit is concerned, one thing I am observing is as follows. Banks are now talking of financing small entrepreneurs. A many number of NBFCs, of course, have come up. We are one of them. And then there are a number of fintech-based NBFCs. Then there are many fintechs. There are many platforms. There are fintechs with balance sheet. There are fintechs without balance sheet. All of these are expanding the number of players, and therefore the supply is increasing dramatically. And when supply increases, then the borrower or the counterparty, which is basically the borrower's negotiating power, dramatically improves. Then you are no longer bound to go to a bank and stand in line in queues for many days at a stretch to get a loan, because someone is giving it to you. And therefore, one of the solutions to this whole process is the market forces, which is just increasing supply. Now, as that has happened, clearly we are seeing, I have to share some numbers with you towards the end of my talk to you, that lending to industry in 2015 was 45.1%. It has already come down to 35%. And lending to retail lending, that is as a percentage of non-food credit, has increased between 2015 to 2018, just 3 years, has increased from 20% to 25%. This is on stock. Now, if you take it as a percentage of incremental lending of that particular year, retail as a percentage of incremental lending in 2014-15 was 18%. Last year touching 48%. And industry as a percentage of incremental lending in 14 was 45%. It's come down to 3.3%. That of course could be a temporary lull because of the reasons we know. But the point is still that both as a percentage of stock and as a percentage of incremental lending, you are seeing that there is a substantial amount of flow of credit that has begun to flow towards the retail sector. I also showed you the reasons, because alternative capabilities are available and also because the supply of financials has increased. To my mind, when this sort of supply comes to the sector, then straight away the negotiating power of the borrower dramatically increases. Interest rates, you don't have to haggle that much because people have to give you the best rates to make things happen. Customer service standards have to go up. Transparency standards have to go up. So in my opinion, this market solution is playing a very big role and will continue to play a big role in this process. So my only sense would be that the Reserve Bank of India and the Government of India, as they're already doing, should continue to increase the number of players in the sector and who can therefore reach multiple segments of this ecosystem, and that in turn will improve the standards of service, governance, transparency and availability of credit. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.